Faculty of Business and Law of Taylor's University since 2017. He took his bachelor's and master's degree at University of London and completed his doctoral degree University Kebangsaan, Malaysia. In 2017, he released his outstanding book, Law and Justice / Art. His area of expertise is trust law. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Associate Professor Harmahinder Singh.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. I'm sorry about the technical glitch that came about here. I would like to first and foremost give all of you a very good morning from Kuala Lumpur. I'm Harmahinder, as the MC has or the moderator has very kindly introduced. I serve as the head of Taylor's Law School in Taylor's University. Our university is located about 10 kilometers from the city center, Kuala Lumpur. So selamat pagi, salam bersiaran to all of you from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak at this wonderful conference here this morning. And a very warm welcome to the Rector, Dr. Kurniawan for Nusa Putra University, Mr. Teddy Lesmana, the President of ICLaPH, and Madam Hida, who is the Head of the Study of Law in Nusa Putra University. Thank you also to the organizing committee for making arrangements to be able to hear address, and it is entirely an honor for me to speak here today. The topic that I have chosen is very much close to my heart because I have been in legal education for many years now, and I have chosen the topic of reimagining legal education in post-pandemic era, lessons, opportunities, and solutions. So I'm quite aware that the title of the conference or the conference is Reinventing the Vision of Law Through the Pandemic Era for a Better Future of Humanity. So my view is that legal education is the starting point for a better future for law and for humanity. If we are going to practice law, I think in those circumstances, we will have a better future if we start off with the domain of legal education. Can you all still hear? Okay, great. So move on from here to the overview of my presentation here this morning. The first part of my presentation would be in relation to the global pandemic and coming to terms with reality. And then I will go into observations, learnings, and effects of COVID-19 on students and on law schools. And I would also then speak about the transformation post-COVID-19, the new world that we will see emerging, hopefully, and how we will be able to thrive in this new world. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, there have been some realities that we will have to deal with. So it is not an exaggeration for me to say that the pandemic will cause a very bad impact on our economy, global economy, and this will also lead to a global financial last that we have seen of such a global crisis, financial crisis, was in 1997, and I think we are heading towards perhaps a global economic downturn, if not already started, worst in our global economy. That is the reality that we will have to face. And this pandemic has been with unprecedented nature. We also saw in many countries all around the world large-scale restriction on movements, home stays or quarantines on their citizens. And we have seen since January last year when the pandemic started in China. And this pandemic seems to have continued in a variety of ways in different countries. So, whilst the immunization or the vaccination program in each country has progressed at a different stage, here in Malaysia with this pandemic, hopefully, and also deal with the effects of the pandemic for many years to come. But about pandemic is that it has turbocharged reform and mindset change. So in many countries in the world, we have seen that we have had economic stimulus packages across the world to deal with this pandemic. And in the education sector, this has, of course, gave us the opportunity to explore online teaching. It has also given us the opportunity to explore a variety of ways of delivery which are non-traditional. It us the opportunity to deal with problems differently. It is my view that legal education as a business, in many countries, this is a for-profit business, especially in the private sector. So likewise, in Malaysia, we have private sector shape, in size, and in form. I would like to also share some of the observations. These are through focus groups that have been conducted in my university. My university law school is a law school of about 700 students at all levels of study, from undergraduate to PhD level. So it affected all levels of study. But I think one of the main observations that we have learned is that technology is a powerful tool that has changed how teachers teach and how students will learn. It has provided people with access to education and access to different ways of communicating and working together. So at the start of the pandemic in Malaysia in March 2020, we were only about a week before the start of our new semester or new teaching term at that time. And when there was a nationwide lockdown, we were actually left in a situation because we were not fully prepared to deliver teaching entirely online. And I'm sure this is also the situation in many other universities. But the observations and the learnings from what we have had since the start of the pandemic is that mindsets have evolved. So automatically, almost overnight, we have had to move the teaching from its traditional teaching and learning to online teaching and learning using technology. So the teaching and learning is now delivered in a real live situation online in a synchronous manner or asynchronous manner, so that students can continue with their learning. Staff and students initially were not very happy with this change, but over time they have had to deal with this change with an open mind, provided there was clear communication, support and troubleshooting. So we were able to move to 100% online learning. OL here is online learning, and working remotely from home. So we were able to deliver our teaching from home. So this was something that we have learned to become better at, and we have continued to do since the start of the pandemic. As far as dynamics are concerned, there was a positive impact on the different teams within the university and in the law school. Everyone seemed to be more willing to work together to find solutions during the time of this pandemic. More positive during the difficult time of the pandemic. And the extent of the fears that we had, so what is going to happen and how are things going to evolve and so on and so forth, seem to have been predominantly unfounded. So we were very fearful that we were not going to be able to come out of this pandemic or be able to deliver teaching and learning online. But in those circumstances, we were successful in doing so. And we were able to actually overcome some of these challenges. And we found that these challenges were not insurmountable. The effects on the students. So for law students, generally, the surveys and the focus group discussions suggested that whilst students do not mind online learning for their learning continuity, they appreciated troubleshooting support. They appreciated clear communication and interaction with the leaders of the school in order for them to be able to make the right decisions for the students. So students generally appreciated learning continuity and support. There was also an adaptability and suitability of online learning spaces that had to be adapted to. So students at different levels were able to adapt differently to online learning. The home environment may not have been entirely conducive for all our students, and that may have impeded in their learning at some points. But generally speaking, most of our students were able to continue online. So as far as the effect on law students are concerned, they have adapted quite well to learning continuity with support, and we were actually able to continue teaching and learning online. Now, as far as staff and the law school were concerned, so adaptability to online learning, staff were able to quickly adapt to learning online. Working remotely became a refreshing and eye-opening experience to many of us. So we were able to work from home effectively, and that led to better productivity and other global opportunities like this, right, where we can actually deliver talks and lectures online from wherever we are, in whichever location. So this was a good thing for the law school. Now I'm moving on to the third part of my presentation, which is the transformation that we will see in the post-COVID pandemic. So higher education, as we have seen it even before the COVID-19 pandemic, was actually facing an existential crisis. So law schools and their business models marketplace, situational hazards, poor student outcomes, and perhaps even escalating cost at law school level, always had drawn criticism, at least in Malaysia. And the pandemic obviously has made the situation even more worse. So we will now see a new world emerge after the pandemic. And I think in some countries, this is already the situation, where working remotely and online learning will become a normal working culture. We will no longer need office places, and we may no longer need university spaces for classroom teaching. We will also see flexible teaching and learning become the new world agenda. So the days where students will need to go to universities to acclimatize to their new environment will no longer be a need, because students with proper internet access will be able to conduct their teaching and learning flexibly from wherever they are in whichever part of the world. University life and experience will also change. So universities will no longer just be a place where students will learn in a classroom. I was very impressed to see the dance performance earlier. And I thought that, that is an environment where students are able to learn different skills and are exposed to cultural norms and so on and so forth. So it is interesting that we will see university life become a place for cultural development rather than just classroom teaching. It will be a place for interaction, engagement, and collaboration. And it will just no longer be a place for going to school or going to university to learn from a lecturer. The lecturers will become their facilitators for this interactive, engaging, and collaborative learning. And the McKinsey report says that we will have to deal with this situation with the 5R approach. We will have to have a resolution to deal with the current situation. We must build resilience. We must return to this new norm. We must repurpose, and we must reform. I will cover individually all of these in turn. So I think the first priority in any situation would be for us to be prepared. So the resolution part, we must actually have sustainable contingency plans. So here in Malaysia, we are lucky because generally our country is quite safe from natural disasters. This is an example. The last time we had a contingency to deal with was during the annual haze season, where we have these dust particles in the and we deal with it, and this is because of forest fires in our region, and in that circumstances the air quality is so low that we cannot go to work as normal, so we stay at home. And that happens very, very seldom. It happens once a month or sometimes once a year, even, depending on the circumstances. So those are the kind of the major contingencies that we in Malaysia have had to deal with over the years. We have never had any situation which is more major than a haze to deal with. So it is just we don't have situations where we are dealing with earthquakes or tsunamis or floods and so on and so forth. So we are generally quite spoiled in that sense, and we deal with this sort of smaller contingencies. But the pandemic was something that we were not prepared for. And I think we all need to now prepare for worse off situations in the event it does occur. And this pandemic has become a health crisis because we are not able to work as normal, and we will have to deal with different ways of working. So we need to have sustainable contingency plans as part of this resolution. And these plans must be robust enough to be triggered when they are needed. And of course, awareness amongst our students in the community, acceptance and simulations need to be carried out to ensure that we are prepared for these contingencies. So whilst we can communicate these contingencies, perhaps during orientations, students could sign off a contingency agreement to ensure that they are well prepared in the event we need to move fully to an online environment. And we should also have contingency drills, just like a fire drill, so that we are prepared for future contingencies as part of priority number 1, which is to be always prepared. Priority number 2 takes the form of value proposition of our programs in legal education. So whilst legal education has always been to prepare the lawyer for legal practice, I think that will no longer be the situation, because legal education will become a lifelong learning tool, and we must be able to effectively harness the role of technology in our offering of our variety of programs. We should have flexible fee models that we use, and these courses that we should offer should be in the form of global market practical courses and credentials. They shouldn't just be law degrees, as we have always done. They should prepare our society and our community to better deal with the challenges that the law will have to deal with in future. We are also going to become part of a global learning and on. So we would like to invite collaborations with universities abroad to jointly conduct global classrooms. So we will move into an environment where teachers are no longer teachers in just one location. They could be teachers in different locations. So I, for example, could be teaching in a university abroad, and universities abroad could be teaching in my law school. So there could be that kind of an environment that will become a reality. And assessments should no longer just be exam-based. So all these conventional assessments like exams will become obsolete, because we no longer will be able to conduct exams. And I think there needs to be a shift of paradigm from the conventional assessments to a more systematic way of delivering assessments in circumstances of the new environment. So the last priority is, of course, for resources, to have training and care for staff, to facilitate working remotely from home. And of course, universities should be spending strategically on upgrading for greater investments for interactive technology, upgrading of online learning platforms, online assessments, online library resources, upgrading of devices for staff, designing new type classrooms and collaborative learning places as part of repurposing and reforming. Now, I will leave you with this quote from David Wallach. We need technology in every classroom and in every student and teacher's hand, because it is the pen and paper of our time, and it is the lens through which we experience much of our world. So this is the end of my presentation, and I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. I would like to continue this discussion if there is an opportunity for collaboration among the participants here today. I wanted to also invite you to our conference, which will be held on the 26th and 27th of October, where we would also be talking about the future of law and legal practice. And if you want to scan the QR code on the screen, you may do so to register for this conference, which is free. So we can continue this discussion at that opportunity. And I will also be very happy to collaborate with any one of the participants, if the participants are willing to do so, via email, or you can look me up on LinkedIn at the addresses that you see on the screen. So thank you very much for your time and for this opportunity to speak at this conference. I really appreciate Thank you very much. Selamat pagi.
Thank you very much for an interesting talk. We got some questions, our audience. Pandemic caused people jobless, and there is a lot of technology that supplies human in works. What is the role of government to handle the issue related disruptive technology?
I think the role of every government is to provide, first and foremost, I think in every country we need to have stimulus packages to ensure that there is proper internet access for every corner of the country. We are no longer able to work in an environment where we can go to a physical location. So we need to have proper utilities by way of internet access. So internet access will become like water and electricity. It is very important, and it is something that all governments must focus on to provide. That's my first point. The second point, as I was sharing earlier, I think that whilst the government may be able to provide policies to prepare for the times to come, I think we as individuals in the society must ensure that we are also adapt to new ways of doing things. We cannot be we cannot just work in an environment where we are doing things in the same old circumstances, and we must be able to now accept new ways of learning, new ways of working, and as well as to deal with different challenges in the environment to come. So, as I said earlier, this pandemic, the good thing about this pandemic is that it has turbocharged or catapulted all of us to a circumstance where we are forced to do what we do in the way that we do it. And we have no other choice. We have to deal with this particular type of a situation. So as far as governments are concerned, I think all governments around the world are doing their best. And provided that these policies can be implemented effectively, I think most of the governments would be already dealing with their home situation as best as they can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have more questions.
Yes, please.
In your opinion, does disruptive technology considered as a transformation post-COVID-19?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, sure. In your opinion, does disruptive technology considered as a transformation post-COVID-19?
Whether disruptive technology is a transformation post-COVID-19, is that the question?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, indeed. I think it is not only something that will be relevant post-COVID-19. I think it was already relevant even before COVID. COVID has just turbocharged us into a situation where we will now have to deal with disruptive technology. So the Internet of Things, for example, dealing with IR 5.0, in the Industrial Revolution 5.0, where everything is at our fingertips, was a norm even before the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think my opinion is that this COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that what we thought was not possible in the past. For example, we always thought of the traditional way of learning and working. And that was something that we all were very fond of, this traditional way of doing things, going to university, going to work in a particular location, and so on and so forth, was a norm at that time. And I think this pandemic has taught us that that will be something that we will all have to change in the event we are faced with a situation like this. And we can continue to change. So whilst disruptive technology will be a tool to help us change, we ourselves will need to ensure that we adapt to that environment. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Harmahinder. We hope you enjoyed having this interactive session, and we look forward to having you in future conference.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.